Okay, it is Election Day Tuesday, and boy, oh boy, what a tense and weird time to be in America. But what an awesome time to have amazing creatives, amazing artists, and amazing performers on Architects and Heroes. Today we have Princess Superstar, actual
Woo!
superstars in the building, and Larry T.
Woo!
Wow! First of all, thank you both so much for spending time with me this election day. Both of you have such storied careers, right? Both of you have kind of were there at a time in culture where digital technology and creativity were kind of all coming together. And I know that you guys collaborated together on the Licky single. Can you tell me a little bit? And let's start with you, Princess Superstar. First, about how the two of you first met, because I know there's some good stories here.
Oh, totally. Well, Larry, you have to understand, is like a legend in New York City club history. So, even before Electro Clash, all that stuff, Larry was like like a club legend in New York City. And I knew that he had written RuPaul's Supermodel work and all that. And so it was really, I believe it was like my gay glam team that was like, you need to work with Larry. It's like my boys who really made Princess Superstar like visually what I am today. Like, I mean, as much as the music, I always say like that there's music and then there's, the persona. And so they were like, you need to work with Larry. He's so amazing. And I was like, yeah, of course. Like, it was like, my photographer, Josh Jordan, and then my hairstylist, Clyde Haygood, all guys who went on to become huge in their industries. Like, Josh as a photographer and Clyde, does hair for the Kardashians and everything. So anyways, they told me about Larry. And so when Larry said I had a song, this is how I remember it. Like Larry, I want to hear your perspective too, but how I remember it was, he told me he had a song and that he had written it and he wanted me to sing it. And then I was like, well, I need to put a rap on it because I always like put my stamp on it, that's how it happened. And it was, I believe, 2006, I want to say, but I'm not sure.
Maybe.
Okay, Larry, you tell the story.
Funny, I really became aware of you. I had your first CD, which I loved from the first second I heard it. And I literally, I think I know every breath on it. And then when I did my second Electro Clash festival, Conchetta, which is sometimes what people call Princess Superstar, showed up with the CD and said, I'm performing. And I was like, okay. And I knew enough to know that that wasn't going to be a bad idea. And so they performed and the CD skipped.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And by the way, the song was called Fuck Me on the Dance Floor, and it was with Disco D, rest his soul, because he's not with us anymore. But it was the fastest I've had ever rapped because it was a style of music called ghetto tech. Okay. And it was like, boom, boom, it was so fast. And I was like barely keeping up. And then on top of it, the CD skipped.
Yeah, I mean, it was still great. The CD skipping didn't change Princess Superstar's approach to it at all. She was blissfully unaware because the crowd was so amazing. And I remember everybody that was anybody in music at the time was on that fucking stage. Yeah. And it was because I just remember looking around and going, what the who? Because it was such a moment when Felix the House Cat and Too Many DJs and the LCD sound system guys,
Peaches and then
Chicks on Speed.
Yeah, it was this epic show. Actually, there's an amazing piece of content from like MTV News where what's her name again? The girl
Moldy Peaches.
Yeah, she's doing a report on it. Like you can look it up. It's like MTV lore.
Yeah, no, it was great. But then later I was trying to, I was getting ready to do an album of my own. And I immediately thought, sometimes you know, the people that you help make famous, like the Electroclash stars, they're not going to be the first ones to volunteer to do something, even though Peaches would have gladly. She's a total sport. But
Yeah.
I totally thought it needed to be somebody that wasn't from my past, that it needed to be somebody that was totally in the future. And I love Conchetta's sexy voice.
And like name checking all of those artists that you just name check, and to think about just the pedigree of people, Larry, that you have worked with over the years, and frankly to see, in the trajectory of your career, how continually you are reinventing, reconfiguring, understanding what's happening in culture in such a really almost like Simpsons-esque future crystal ball way, that you kind of see these things coming, or you just by the sheer force of will are there to kind of help shepherd those things along in your career. And I'm curious, from the time that you were part of the New York underground club scene, from your time in Atlanta until now your time in LA, like how your career has kind of um, been sort of that shining light on what the next thing is in culture. Because I think there's something about both of you that is frankly just so timeless and classic, and completely always constantly aware of that next thing, that I'm just endlessly curious. Honestly, I'm just over here feverishly taking notes about how I might be able to do it too. But I'm just super curious about how you had your antenna up, and how that was on these things were on your radar at such an early point.
Well, you know, it's for me, you know, I want whatever is new. And so, you know, working with a drag queen, I remember the Frankie Knuckles and David Morales kind of giving me sad face when RuPaul, I did the RuPaul song. They were like, "Oh, Larry doesn't get it," because Church Lady was in. And then when Electroclash happened, that's when, you know, I got sober in 97. So I did a festival in 2001. That was sort of my coming back out into music. And, you know, it was a chance for me to work with entirely new music and entirely new artists. And then even past that, you know, I got more into rap, and I felt Conchetta was like, she was like the rapper that I immediately related to, that had the same sense of humor, which is key, that I had. And so that's why we're actually probably as good of friends, if not better now, than we were even back then when we first met. Now, you know, our lives have led us in the same area, and we're now both in LA, and both of our careers are wildly relevant again. And I think it's because if you just lean forward into whatever's new, you're gonna get to the good stuff.
I just want to say, not only lean into what's new, but also be slightly ahead of your time back then, so that then when the world catches up, they're like, oh wait, we really want that sound, you know, like, and that was from already 15 years ago. Because that's what's happening right now. It's like Charlie XCX and all that, like, it's all our sound.
That's amazing. And I was just saying that to somebody else. I'm like, the Dare, the Charlie XCX, and they're like, oh, they're bringing back Indie Sleaze. I'm like, but Indie Sleaze was looking at 80s electro. Like, you know, it's like there's this whole confluence of things that, in my estimation, you know, I was sort of in that era of kids who like was first wave acid house, but at the same time, like conscious hip hop was like surging. It was like this confluence of acid house and hip hop and punk rock and all of these different elements that even now I think are so future looking, because I think it's pretty unprecedented that people that are connected to club culture, that have been in it for as long as as I have, at least, are still doing things that, in my estimation, are far beyond what has been done. And I go out a lot. I see a lot of different things. And I have to say that for the work that I've seen in the body of work that the two of you have done, it's still, in my view, something that isn't you know, that's it. You're still going beyond those boundaries, you know, 20 plus years later. And like, how do you account for that? Like longevity. I mean, well, quality, you know, there's that. There's like, you're good at what you do and you're not following trends. You're kind of making them. But like, you know, the Saltburn effect. Let's talk about that for a minute, right? With you, Princess Superstar, like that. Wow. Like, can you tell me a little bit about, share that story a little bit? Because that is amazing to me.
It's actually completely, I'm just still in shock about the whole thing. So, yeah, I mean, Saltburn asked me to use Perfect Exceeder, you know, like a year and a half ago. And I was like, sure, you know, not thinking anything. I've licensed that song out so many times, you know. It was a hit in 2007 in the UK, but that was about it. So when Saltburn hit, and it was over Christmas, so it was like this really magical thing for me. I'm like looking at my phone and I'm like, wait, that's my song. Like every other reel, it was like my song. And I was like, what is happening right now? Like what? And then the label's calling me and they're like, you're going viral. Like we'd never seen anything like this. And it was all because of Saltburn. And all of a sudden, you know, I had a lull in my career. To go back to what you were saying before, like, how do you have the longevity? Well, I'll tell you something. You suffer. You be willing to suffer for your art. Because like I went through like a 10-year lull, like where I would put music out and I'd get like 1,000 streams. I mean, it was miserable, you know, and I had to get a regular job. And I was like, how do I work a regular job? I'm a superstar, you know, all that stuff. And, you know, and I just did. And I sort of went into that humility, you know, and then when Saltburn hit, it was just like so magical because it was kind of like, you know, I had done my thing. I had a huge decade between 2000 and 2010, very slow decade, 2010 to 2020, you know, and then this happened and it was like, boom, would you like to tour around the world, get signed to Universal, work with top producers? Yes, please, I would. And because I actually never stopped making music, it's just that the consumption wasn't there. I was ready for this opportunity. I had never stopped writing. So I love to share this also for other artists because it's like, what is luck when preparation meets opportunity? And I was prepared because I never stopped, you know?
You know, one of the things that I and Larry, I think you are one of the architects of this is that, you know, on the surface, and I don't know how you want to phrase this, like Electroclash or Indie Sleaze or whatever, there to me was this magical moment in the early 2000s MySpace era where all musical genres just kind of went into a blender, and Diplo was a school teacher at the time, and all of the cross-pollination of all these crazy parties started to happen, but it happened nationally. Like I was in Dallas at the time, I think when the Hollertronics parties in Philadelphia were happening, but of course you had those 2 or 3 like batshit crazy, let's get in the car and drive and see what's going on over there because I heard on MySpace these parties are popping, right? So you've got this little circuit of people that are just like getting in their beaters, checking out scenes in other states, and it felt very much like I think what early punk rock must have felt like, where you get the zines and get in the van and be like, I don't know, hopefully nothing bad will happen. Let's see, let's take drugs and hit the road, you know, whatever. Well, and there's still a little bit of that now. I just have better insurance. But like I want it. My point of this is that I feel like, you know, yes, there's a great visual component to this. The whole combination of like fashion and art and music come together, but just beneath the surface, you can tell that the people that are there doing the work take this very seriously. They take it very seriously. And it is such an incredible art form that you see now, you know, 10, 15, 20 years later, that a lot of the aesthetic in like museums and art galleries and sort of the postmodern wave of artists that are coming out doing work, it feels and looks a lot like what was being done in that early scene. And I wonder if you guys can speak to that, because again, I feel like I've been an observer, but I think the two of you have been more architects of that. And it clearly came out of the East in New York City and waved its way. What is it they say, that everything eventually tilts and it all runs down to California, right? But I would love to hear the story of kind of sort of the early part of that, and again, the longevity is clear, like the outcome of what that is really clear to me. But how did that feel when you were both involved with that in New York City? Did you realize what a cultural impact you're going to have when all this first started up?
Larry, you answer that.
I was definitely in that I put it together in a good looking package, because to be honest, Electro Clash wasn't it wasn't like indie rock, or where you could change the drummers and everybody would look the same, or it wasn't like it wasn't pop. It wasn't really designed to be pop. It was more of a punk ass political expression. And that's one of the things that inspired me so much at the time, is that during the Electro Clash era, more female artists had the stage than any other time since. Really, if you think about all the early Electro Clash artists, there was Miss Kitten, there was Ladytron, Princess Superstar, La Tigra,
Peaches, yeah, Avenue D,
Chicks on Speed, Ellen Alien. It just, the thing that I thought was, looking back now, it was so political. It was real talk about sexuality and politics, and you could be queer. It was like, it was the first time people said, where some of the male pop stars even said, "I'm bisexual," and they were not. But it was like the first really politically sensitive movement where it was clear that it was a new era. Literally, we had to go through mainstream magazines. Thank God, during Electro Clash, I had the writer from The Face and ID magazine living at my house working for me.
That helped.
So she was the one that shot it into the stratosphere, because that was where all the music press came from at that point. That was going to be cool. And so she just made sure everybody on the planet had it. And she's probably the real queen of Electro Clash, is, I mean, the talent that was on those stages. My favorite groups were all on the stage, and they were singing me happy birthday. And I remember thinking, how did this happen, that all my favorite groups at that time were at Webster Hall singing me happy birthday?
Well, and it was because Larry really put everything together. I mean, he was the mastermind behind Wit. He was the mastermind, calling it Electro Clash and the party in Brooklyn that you invented. Like, you really were the mastermind of that. And I remember there was like a little bit of beef between you and like DJ Hell in Berlin, and so I mean, but the point is that Larry really was the architect of all of that back then.
Because songs from every single one of the acts that you've talked about pop up in almost every DJ set that I've heard in the past 10 years going out. They always come up to this day. Like it still continues to be relevant. And I think that's one of the unique things about electronic music. Yeah. And I'm just curious for both of you. I know, Larry, we met face to face for the first time at Simon Says. Shout out Simon Says party, which is just a bonkers next level experience. If you haven't been, highly recommend it. What's up, Patrick? So sincerely love that party. But when we ran into each other, you had said that you're now getting into production, into more like, this is a whole new line of thinking, but television production, whatever television means today, which is more like, content creation is now kind of part and parcel of everything, any creative. It doesn't matter if you're a singer, an artist, a painter, a psychiatrist. Like, if you don't have your own sort of little media operation, creating video, creating content, having a website, developing a digital ecosystem for engaging with your audience, then you're off the radar.
Before we go any further, let me also acknowledge that when Conchetta was bad talking, naughty talking on her records back in the early noughties, there wasn't a WAP, there wasn't, and now it's such a mainstream concept. It's like, of course, and and if you take my songs like My Pussy or Supermodel You Better Work a Bitch, which are kind of contract between the two of us, we have definitely lowered the level of with our trash talking and our sense of humor that is now weirdly in
mainstream.
vogue.
Yeah, it's mainstream, isn't it? Yeah, that's so funny,
Larry. You were so far ahead of your time as far as like just going out and saying all the things that people only wish they could say.
Oh man, that's amazing. Thank you. I mean, like, we did have Lil Kim with like when hardcore came out in 1995, my jaw went to the floor. She was like, suck molasses out my asses. I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. But you're right. It wasn't really like mainstream, and but I think what you were talking about before, Stephen, that's so interesting is that I think what makes electro so amazing, or indie sleaze, or blog house, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I'm like, they're really hardcore calling it blog house. I'm like, we didn't even call it that back then. But anyway, or indie sleaze. But you know what? Why the longevity is because we borrowed from everything, like you spoke to earlier, which was like we were looking to the 80s. So for me personally, I was like borrowing from everything from New Order to Lil Kim, to freaking Pink Floyd, and the Buzzcocks, like whatever. I just mush mashed it together to become Princess Superstar, right? And that's what the whole thing was about. And I think that's why it has longevity, because it's like, wow, if you're borrowing from all the greatest stuff and you're mushing it together, well, hell yeah, it's going to be good and endure, Yeah, for every one hit song, I've written 1,000 fucking songs that do nothing, and like sleepless nights, rejected by labels, like whatever, like, yeah, pain and torture and suffering.
Yeah. So this is the happy face of the tortured artist.
Yes.
I had a rather milestone birthday not so long ago. I'll just say I'm firmly in Generation X. And I had this birthday party and my friend's like, dude, so this is what happens when you live fast and you don't die young. The thing that I'm endlessly curious about, especially with artists that, are so clearly have been able to synthesize, in my estimation, all of the good things about, underground culture, to synthesize those things and to kind of make them their own, as, we're sitting here again on election day in 2024, and you look at sort of the trajectory of what you're doing creatively now, and this kind of comes a little bit back to like how we all have to be our own sort of whatever personal media, conglomerates. How are you kind of taking digital, the digitization of everything, let's call it, because how are you as creatives kind of harnessing the power of that technology? Because I do see both of you on platforms, and I see kind of the, I'm lurking and I see the things that you guys do. How are you taking this now and kind of moving forward with your own creative practices?
Go ahead, Larry.
Okay.
Larry's
Let me jump.
TV.
Let me jump in on this one.
Yeah.
I personally see that. I love that we have all these channels, but if we try to promote our music on Facebook or Instagram, unless you're already a major influencer, it does nothing. So for me, I always think that TV is the way to do it. I'm working on a couple TV projects. I'm my music is mostly with trans girls, just because I think there's a lot of interest in trans girls. It's the new electro clash, and
Yeah.
or they're the new gangster rappers because they're like illegal in 20 states now. Poor things,
What?
you know. And so, leaning towards something that's new and using new media is really important. I also, I'm totally up for pitching. There's a reality show that's a talent contest for uniquely talented people. And whenever I see Conchetta on TV, all I think of is that she should be on TV. That it's such a natural fit, and especially this show is about laughing. And if one of your hosts can laugh so well, they should be on TV. And TV would be a wonderful way to make our the fact that we're kind of having a moment here with our viral Licky and the Perfect Exceeder, being basically the #1 dance record of the year. When David Guetta takes your record and makes it David Guetta featuring Mason and Princess Superstar, and that it literally it gets played everywhere more than most new songs.
You
People
guys,
remember
it's
it.
at 100 million streams. Like, what in the actual hell?
Wow.
So it's like social media, TV, and you know what? I'm convinced that people would love to see us on TV. I mean, look how good
Yeah.
we look. What? Look at
I
this.
You know what? You know
What?
what? I think like a Big Brother house type of a situation with you
Oh my
guys,
God.
Peaches and Fisher Spoon, like everybody who was on the tour, do like a Big Brother house style thing where
Oh, that would be hilarious.
But a comedy about all of us, like having contemporary actors playing us in a comedy where it makes fun of the concept of what we were doing, of the trash that we did
Yeah.
at the time. That would be could be really funny, because it would make it more it would give us a little room, but then they would have to use our music in the thing. But yes, there's already a network they called a FAST network, which is the future of TV. It's basically cable TV with ads.
Love it.
And it reaches so many more people because it's worldwide. Anybody around the world can tune into the shows on FAST. And CBS, NBC, and it's sort of what they're doing already is commercials on TV, and it's free. People are tired of paying, $200 to get all the networks, and a lot more and more they're going to things that are free again.
Mhm.
And so yes, there's already somebody that really loves the idea. So I'm pitching, and it won't be long. And if I do it, I know I'm going to drag Miss Conchetta in there, because
Yes.
she will laugh harder than anybody else at bad performance art.
I will.
I absolutely love that. And I think, I always like to mix in like theoretical academic ideas to like practical Marshall McLuhan application of what has happened. And I don't know if you guys read The Long Tail, but it's basically the story of how we started with, 3 network television stations. Now we have thousands of these different channels and outlets and ways to kind of connect with stuff that's important. And I remember as a kid growing up in Oklahoma, going to like the one weirdo vintage place that you could buy like $30 singles of Bauhaus from the UK or whatever, and like buy those tickets to the elusive Dallas shows, and I could run away with my punk rock friends on the weekends and go see a show, in the big city of Dallas, Texas. And like, I still am not over the fact that I can pick up my phone and dial in almost any song in the universe right now. That freaks me out.
Yeah.
Almost.
It's kind of sad, because like what you're sharing about, I remember the joy of like going, like I was born in New York City, but then we moved to Philly, like outside Philly. And I used to have to drive into Philly, or get my parents to drive me into Philly to go to Zipperhead, the one store, and then like get the one hoodie or the one single or whatever. Like, and it was such a thing. And now it's just like, you can just have it. Like, yeah. I hope I don't sound like a grandma, in my day.
No. Oh no. I do this all the time. And I'm someone who has like for the past 25 years worked in digital media. And I'm like, I collect records. I like box machines. Yes, I've got my DAW. Yes, I've got my digital stuff. But like, I like physical paintings. I like the
Yeah.
tactical side, but I can't imagine being without my connected device either. It's just as the two of you, continue to create, how are you leveraging, all of the tech and all of the platforms that are out there to kind of
I want to be the Andy of Bravo.
Andy Cohen.
Andy Cohen. I'm the Andy Cohen of Fast TV.
So you're obviously you had said this, Larry, you and I talked just briefly before. It's Conchetta. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Because I hate mispronouncing. It drives me crazy.
That's
before Conchetta, before you jumped on, Larry and I were just talking about like content creation. Creating now is kind of there's an extension into these spaces where you have a team to do it. I'm very DIY. Like if you saw my rig, it looks like the like how the nice Simpsons looks, and everything else is like a wreck behind. It's kind of spit and duct tape studio situation here. But I love it. And it's also a way for me to engage and to meet amazing artists like the two of you. And it's really been kind of a magical thing for me to be able to connect in this way on this level. And I'm curious about how, the two of you have used the platforms and what good and bad you have found. And we'll start with you, Conchetta, on this one. Like how are the new digital platforms a net positive or a net negative?
Well, certainly it's a net positive for me because, like, for example, I really went viral on TikTok and Instagram this year. And like, we didn't have that coming up. We had MySpace and Napster. And so that it's just been nothing but amazing. But interestingly enough, I don't have a ton of followers on Instagram. I have double followers on TikTok. So that's been really interesting to see. Like there's like a younger generation that likes me. They think my music's new. It's so bizarre. And I love it. And
I think your music's Britney Spears.
Yeah, there was a mix up actually. Somebody cut a viral reel to, well, they don't call it real, a TikTok thing, a post to Britney, and they thought Licky was by Britney. So when I said it's mine, they're like, "Oh, are you Britney?" Like it was so weird. I was like, "I'm not Britney." Anyway, so so it's been nothing but amazing. But again, I don't have a ton of Instagram followers. In fact, there are girls that kind of do my sound that have like triple my followers, but that's okay. I don't base my self-worth on followers. But I really enjoy making content. So that's one kind of weird thing. I think a lot of artists today, they don't enjoy it, especially of our generation, but I do, because it's like Larry was saying, it's like we're mini media machines now, and I actually like that. But yeah.
You are a TikTok phenomenon. Conchetta has an adorable daughter who I met we did a big gay pride event in Seattle. And that was the first time I really met her since she was, held in her arms. When we did Licky, she was in her father's arms. I had a fashion company named Gigi, and for a moment, indie fashion companies were the big rage when I was in London, which is like 15 years ago now. I got all my followers on Instagram because of this fashion company. And then it's funny, over the years it's changed. Now I have a whole nother site that's about as big with followers, about 90,000 followers now on Instagram. But I do think it's a great platform for reaching people, and I usually mostly use it for commercial reasons. I don't really cruise Instagram or Facebook. Oh my God, that's like where you find out that your friend died. It is all everybody on there is so old that it's like every time I go on there, I go,
somebody died.
It's like who died book,
It's like they might as well just like turn it into like just obituaries and birthdays. Like, if it wasn't for Facebook, like I wouldn't have. But here's the thing. Here's what I've learned as a nascent content creator, because I'm a user experience designer by trade, and what that basically means is I help make websites and software mobile apps. But I'm on the side that's like, how do you make it relevant to the, how quickly can you check out of your shopping cart and how quickly can you buy shit on the internet, whatever. But what I find is that each of the platforms kind of has their own way of cultivating an audience. And I learned this a little bit by like starting to buy ads in little like $5 and $10 amounts and like, oh, okay, there's a very clear, logical way. And then you see the people that have like 10 million followers. I'm not going to say who or what or how this works, but I can tell you there's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on.
Yeah.
Up to and including, and I don't know if you guys heard about this, but there was this like random producer guy that was cranking out all this garbage AI music, and he got like something like $10 million in a year or less because he was cranking out AI music, and then he was doing a farm to have downloads and listens, and he basically like juiced Spotify out of 10 million, and it came to the surface. I'm like, okay, if there's a random guy in Idaho doing this, you know that there are other people that are getting away with it that are on the industry side. I don't want to blow anybody's spot up, but I'm just saying, if we get together, we'd be quite the digital mafia ourselves.
Yeah, seriously, that's wild. What a story.
Larry, you had mentioned that you got the majority of your followers from like a fashion line. The majority of people that I have gotten followers from or who I've had engagement with, it was just random things. Like, it's like really understanding how the algorithms work and understanding that process is interesting. And then, like with you, Conchetta, when you had this huge blow up of your song vis-a-vis Saltburn, and then sort of TikTok and sort of that trajectory of things, like that kind of stuff is to me very interesting when you start to break down, okay, how did this engagement happen? And that's where I'm really getting to these points where I'm like, okay, I'm very, very interested in how the mechanism of this stuff.
Also, it's quite the enigma, okay? Because, for example, I have 4 to 6 million monthly Spotify listens. I mean, that's just bananas, right? It's like every artist's dream. But I have only around like 50,000 Instagram followers. So it's like, and then I know an influencer who has 1 million Instagram followers who has 100,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. It's like, what, how do you work this fucking shit? I don't know.
It's collectively, I think, is the answer.
Yeah. I got to bounce because I have a recording session, actually.
Oh, awesome.
This has been so fun. What a great interview, Stephen. Thank you.
Absolutely. And really quick before you bounce, Princess Superstar, what is on your radar? What is coming next for you?
Oh, well, I'm really excited. I mean, I'm touring a lot, but I have a new single coming out. It's called Goddess, and it's produced by Oscar Scheller, who just got a platinum record with like Ashnikko, and he's really amazing. And so I'm putting that out in a couple months with Downtown Records, actually. Yeah, exactly.
So you have a new single coming out on Downtown?
Yeah. I'm so excited.
They're amazing. I love that.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. And I'm super excited about that. And stay tuned for lots of big remixers too of all the hot young kids that are cool now.
The kids are coming up from behind. Well, thank you so much, Conchetta. I will get you Adam next. Thank you so much, Princess Superstar.
Great to be here.
I'll ask you the same question. So tell me a little about what's on your radar and what is next for Larry T.
Well, yes, I'm working on the TV show I'd mentioned that I want to use Conchetta with. Originally was called Icons International. It might be called Super Electric Party Machine, but it's a talent show. It's sort of like, a Gong Show meets the Eurovision Song Contest, and it's all about the talent, because anybody could do that, but the talent is what makes a show like that special. So I've got some of the coolest people on earth, and I just finished remixing the Worms on Xbox. They have a
Really?
theme track. So I did they really like the guy that did the Xbox thing had me remix the Worm soundtrack, and I have new material by Love Bailey and Wow Ash Wow, and yeah, just a lot of I am loving working with trans artists because I think it's that moment right before the trans tsunami, and I want to be a part of that. Just
Absolutely.
like I
Yeah.
was helpful in the getting drag onto the radar in America, and also the fact that there was so many women people that were allowed in during Electroclash. It's just that time now where I think the new Electroclash would be trans artists, and
You
I
know,
want to be.
I always have felt like the work is just it's always the art first, but there's such a clearly like a political statement and just in the people that have are included in the process, and I think that's just been such an amazing and wonderful thing for you to kind of be at the forefront of that.
Yes, I'm glad to be the historian of queer culture, and but also, I can't help but think even my supermodel song helped open Drag Race, which led to women that would vote differently than I do, knowing the names of a lot of the drag characters. They would know Valentina and Aquaria and probably have favorites where that would have been something that just wasn't, acceptable, back in the day. And so it's that kind of exposure leads people to appreciate and go, oh, I love these kids.
Yeah, and I think that's incredibly powerful and very, very important. So thank you for your work, and thank you for just everything that you have done for like the culture at large. Thank you so much for your time today, and shout out to Princess Superstar, and thank you for her time as
Love
well.
kids, shout out.
Larry, thank you, thank you, thank you. I cannot thank you enough for this. Really appreciate it. We've been exchanging emails for a while, and we finally were able to do it. Have a great rest of your election day, and to everybody else, you know what to do. Go take care of this.